On that newlywed accused of killing her husband just 8 days after the wedding by pushing him off a cliff. Jordan Lynn Graham has now been officially charged with murder and is expected to be arraigned in court later today.
This footage shows 22-year-old Jordan Graham walking down the aisle on her wedding day, June 29, 2013. She's sobbing uncontrollably, refusing to make eye contact with her groom, staring at the ground instead. Most people thought it was just wedding nerves. But exactly 8 days later, her new husband, Cody Johnson, would be found dead at the bottom of a 300-foot cliff. And Jordan? She's the one who pushed him. What you don't know is how she got him to that cliff in the first place, and the sick lies she told him to make him trust her. This is the case of Cody Johnson. Now let me tell you about this precious young man, because Cody Johnson deserves to be remembered for who he really was. Cody was born in sunny San Jose, California, and grew up with his mama Sherry after his parents went through a divorce. He was her only child, and let me tell you, those two were thick as thieves, absolutely devoted to each other. When Cody was still young, his mama Sherry decided she wanted a fresh start away from all the hustle and bustle of California life. So she packed up their whole world and moved them both to the beautiful state of Montana, where they could start over, surrounded by those gorgeous Rocky Mountains and crystal clear lakes. Cody was just a ray of sunshine everywhere he went. His friends said he absolutely loved making people laugh. He was one of those over-the-top, happy-go-lucky types who would play the class clown just to cheer everyone up when they were feeling down. You know, the kind of person who lights up a room just by walking in. This young man was an outdoor enthusiast through and through. He loved fishing, shooting, and taking those long, peaceful walks through Montana's breathtaking wilderness. Cody was absolutely obsessed with fixing up old vehicles and racing them with his buddies after school and on weekends. After graduation, it was only natural that this car-loving young man got himself a job making custom-built vehicles. And wouldn't you know it, he absolutely loved every minute of that work. His boss Cameron wasn't just his supervisor, he was one of Cody's closest friends, and his career was really starting to flourish. But even with all this success and happiness, Cody told people there was still something missing from his life. He had this dream of settling down, meeting that special someone, and raising a family right there in beautiful Montana. He was ready to find his soulmate and build a life together. Well, his single days were about to come to an end when, in 2011, 21-year-old Cody met a young woman named Jordan Graham. Now, Jordan was quite different from Cody in many ways. Where he was outgoing and animated, she was shy, reserved, and much more introverted. Jordan only really opened up when she felt completely comfortable and safe around someone. But when she did let her guard down, people said she shared that same wonderful sense of humor that made Cody so special. They seemed like they could be a really good match for each other. Jordan also shared his deep love of the great outdoors and traveling to scenic places. They spent countless hours hiking together and touring all those gorgeous mountain routes that make Montana such a tourist destination. One of their absolute favorite places to visit together was Glacier National Park, with its over 700 miles of trails winding through some of the most spectacular scenery you've ever seen. Jordan also had a soft spot for children. She was always helping her friends babysit their little ones, and she dreamed of having kids of her own someday. Now, Jordan came from a very religious household, and she often talked about how strict her upbringing had been. There were lots of rules in her family, And one of the biggest ones was absolutely no intimate relations before marriage. This was non negotiable in her world. Cody told everyone who would listen that he was completely infatuated with this girl. Before long, he was attending church services with Jordan, really trying to become part of her world and show her family that his intentions were serious and honorable. Friends and family watched their relationship and said it appeared to be going from strength to strength. Cody was absolutely besotted with Jordan and told his mama Sherry that he had finally found the person he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. So, after about a year of dating, in December 2012, when Jordan made a very special announcement on social media, absolutely no one who knew them was surprised. These two lovebirds were getting married. After 6 months of careful planning and preparation, on June 29th, 2013, Jordan and Cody tied the knot. The wedding seemed to reflect this young couple perfectly. A magical ceremony held outdoors in God's beautiful creation, with the pair even writing their own special song to dance to as husband and wife. But here's where things get a little strange, darlings. As Jordan walked down that aisle, she was sobbing uncontrollably, and I don't mean happy tears of joy. She wasn't making eye contact with her groom at all, spending most of the walk staring down at the ground instead of looking at the man she was about to promise her life to. Now, for someone as naturally introverted as Jordan, maybe this wasn't too surprising. Wedding days can be overwhelming even for outgoing people. But Cody, he was absolutely beaming with pure happiness. There were plenty of beautiful speeches about what a perfect couple they made, and it really was a lovely event for everyone involved. After the big celebration was over, the newlyweds moved into their very first home together. Instead of jetting off somewhere romantic for a traditional honeymoon, they decided to spend their time off work fixing up and decorating their new place together. Cody had requested a full week off from his job and was scheduled to return to work on July 8th. July 7th, 2013, just 8 days after their fairy tale wedding, started out like any other peaceful summer day. Cody had made plans with his new father-in-law, Stephen, to go kayaking together, but later that morning he contacted Stephen to cancel those plans. His reason? Jordan had a special surprise planned for him. Another friend of Cody's also said he'd called to cancel a round of golf they had scheduled, giving the exact same reason: his new wife had some kind of surprise in store for him. The couple then attended their afternoon church service together before heading out to spend some time at the lake. After that, they returned to church for an evening service. Following all their church activities, they had a late dinner at Dairy Queen with some friends before leaving together. It would be the last time anyone other than Jordan would see Cody Johnson alive. Monday morning, July 8th, 6 a.m. sharp. Cody's week off had come to an end, and he was scheduled to start work bright and early. But the usually prompt and reliable Cody failed to show up at his job. Now, this was completely out of character for this hardworking young man, so his boss Cameron knew immediately that something was very wrong. Cameron decided to drive over to the couple's house to check on his friend, and when nobody answered his knocks, he got so worried that he forced his way inside. The house was empty. No sign of either Cody or Jordan anywhere. There was no evidence of a break-in or anything being obviously wrong inside. Nothing was broken or smashed, and nothing appeared to be missing. But when Cameron went into the garage to see if Cody's car was there, he found something that made his blood run cold. Cody's cell phone was just sitting there abandoned. Now, just like most people these days, Cody was never, ever without his phone. Cameron knew this was serious, so he immediately filed a missing person report with the police. The first person detectives needed to get a statement from was Cody's brand new wife. Jordan told officers that on the drive back home from Dairy Queen the night before, Cody had answered his phone and ended up having about a 30-minute conversation with someone. She said she didn't know who was on the other end of the call, but Cody seemed visibly upset and agitated during the conversation. When they pulled up to their house, Jordan realized her phone was about to die and she had left her charger at work. So she got back in the car and drove to her workplace to get it, leaving Cody behind in the garage. While she was gone, she received a text message from Cody saying he was going to take a drive with someone. When Jordan returned home, she said she saw him leaving in a dark-colored car that had Washington state license plates. But according to Jordan, this wasn't unusual behavior at all. Everyone knew how much Cody loved cars, and she claimed he would often take off with groups of friends to go racing, sometimes very late into the evening. Jordan explained that she hadn't wanted to report him missing right away because she was afraid he might come back home and be angry at her for overreacting and causing unnecessary drama. Cody and Jordan's friends quickly rallied together and started trying to access his social media accounts, hoping they could figure out where he might have gone or who he might be with. Meanwhile, the authorities obtained Cody's phone records and discovered that a number from Washington state had indeed called him around the time Jordan described. Given the fact that Jordan remembered seeing Washington license plates on the car he left in, this seemed like it could be a promising lead. The number was traced back to a man named Jose, and when police contacted him, he told them he had called Cody to talk about some tools he had borrowed from him. Jose said there was nothing unusual about their conversation and nothing he could remember being strange about Cody's behavior or mood. Jose was quickly cleared as a suspect thanks to having a rock-solid alibi for the time period in question. So even though it was strange, especially given those Washington license plates Jordan mentioned, police concluded it was just an odd coincidence. The search for Cody began to expand rapidly. People were out searching at all hours of the day and night, and his friends and family were trying absolutely everything they could think of to find him. It had now been 3 full days since Cody was last seen alive, and police weren't getting any closer to answers. Meanwhile, Jordan was in and out of the police station constantly, answering various questions from different officers. But here's the problem. Those questions weren't being met with consistent answers. Her story seemed to change slightly every time she told it, and detectives were starting to notice these discrepancies. One day, Jordan arrived back at the police station with her mother, and they were carrying a printed email she claimed to have just received that morning. "I got an email this morning from some guy named Tony," she told the officers. The email was from someone calling themselves Carmen Tony, and it was short and absolutely chilling. It read, "Hi, Jordan. My name is Tony. There is no use bothering looking for Cody anymore. He is gone. Call off the search." But the email didn't stop there. It went on to say that Cody had gone off with some friends for a hike that night and had fallen off a cliff during their adventure. Everyone who heard this was shaken to their core, and they desperately hoped it was either completely untrue or, if it was true, that maybe Cody could somehow still be rescued. Jordan said she actually did know someone named Tony who worked with Cody, so authorities immediately tracked him down and asked him to come in for an interview. But this Tony hadn't seen or spoken to Cody in quite a while, and he had never used any email account associated with the name Carmen Tony. He was completely cooperative, happily handing over his phone and computer records to prove his innocence. With Tony cleared, police were back at square one once again. They filed a subpoena with Google to try to trace the origins of that mysterious email, and they also requested data from both Cody and Jordan's phones to see if they could find any new leads. Given that the email specifically mentioned Cody falling off a cliff, Jordan decided to organize her own search party, and they headed up into the rocky, dangerous terrain of Glacier National Park. Some of the roads leading up into the park were narrow, winding, and treacherous, and given the massive size of the park, everyone knew they could potentially be searching for weeks if Cody was even there at all. The next day, they went back to search again, but this time, Jordan seemed to be acting very differently. She appeared to be on some kind of mission. They drove past many roads and cliff edges, any number of places where Cody could have been. But Jordan kept directing them to continue driving, getting higher and higher into the mountains. Jordan was telling the people with her that she wanted to go to one specific spot. She claimed it was a place that Cody had mentioned wanting to see before he died, and she said she believed the Holy Spirit was leading her directly to that location. At one point during their drive, Jordan abruptly stopped the car near what's called the Loop Trail. She leaped out of the vehicle and headed toward a spot where there was a steep, terrifying drop down past jagged rocks and trees. The drop was a bone-chilling 300 feet straight down, absolutely treacherous and deadly. Despite the obvious danger, Jordan climbed right over the safety wall and headed for the edge of the cliff. She leaned over and shouted back to everyone behind her that she could see someone at the bottom near the water. Then she started shouting over and over again that she knew it was Cody down there. The search party immediately alerted the park rangers, but because of the late hour and how incredibly dangerous it would be to attempt a rescue in the dark, they had to wait until morning to safely investigate. At 8 a.m. on July 12th, the search for Cody Johnson came to its tragic end. Using ropes tied securely to trees, the rescue team carefully made their way down the treacherous cliff face. On their way down, they found a blue athletic shoe that perfectly matched the one Cody had been wearing the day he disappeared. When they finally reached the bottom of that deadly drop, they found 24-year-old Cody Johnson lying face down in the shallow water near a beautiful waterfall. Near his body, they discovered a small piece of black cloth, and heartbreakingly, he wasn't wearing his wedding ring. As news began to spread that Cody's body had been found, his friends and family were absolutely devastated and confused. They couldn't understand why on earth he would have been up in that dangerous area at night in the first place. His close friend Eddie told police that even though Cody loved seeing the beautiful sights and going on long walks in the park, he would never have strayed off the marked paths and climbed over safety walls in the darkness. You see, Cody wasn't actually very comfortable with heights at all. He never went to high elevations and always stuck to the lower-level tourist routes that had protective retaining walls around them. Eddie even shared a specific example. He said there was one time when Cody couldn't even climb up a simple ladder to change a light bulb for his mother because the height made him too nervous and afraid. Shortly after Cody's body was discovered, Jordan posted a photo on Instagram from their wedding day. The caption read, "Miss you so much, Cody. Not a day will go by where I don't think about you. You will live on in my heart forever. I know you're in a better place now looking down on me. You're my angel. Love you with all my heart and soul. See you again one day." It had now been 2 weeks since the tragedy, and police were still desperately searching for answers about that mysterious email. While they continued their investigation, Cody was laid to rest. At his funeral, something struck people as very odd. Jordan sat through most of the service scrolling on her phone and showing absolutely no emotion whatsoever. Now, this could have been her way of processing grief and trying to cope with such a devastating loss, but her maid of honor and best friend Kimberly thought this behavior was just too strange to ignore. After witnessing Jordan's bizarre behavior at the funeral, Kimberly promptly walked into the police station and started to shine a completely new light on the entire investigation. She asked to speak with officers about some very interesting text messages she had received from Jordan in the weeks leading up to and immediately after the wedding. Despite what appeared to be perfect nuptials, Kimberly recalled many conversations with Jordan about how she seemed far more excited about planning the wedding ceremony rather than the thought of actually being married to Cody. She was more excited about being a bride for a day than being a wife for life. Other people would later confirm this observation, saying that Cody was always much more deeply in love with Jordan than she ever seemed to be with him. Kimberly remembered several times when Jordan had asked her if she thought she was making the right decision by marrying Cody. Other friends backed this up, saying Jordan had been very nervous about the wedding and wondering if she was making a huge mistake. The night after the wedding, Jordan sent Kimberly a text saying, "I don't know if all this was the right thing to do. So much happened last night. I just don't know." Kimberly replied, asking if she meant the wedding ceremony or the wedding night, and Jordan responded, being married. And after the wedding, when Kimberly asked what had happened, Jordan wrote back, "I'd rather talk about what happened, not text about it." But as the days went on, the disturbing text messages continued. Jordan sent messages about hoping certain biological functions would work out in her favor because if she was forced to do something, she was going to freak out. On the night of July 7th, the very night Cody would die, as the couple was leaving Dairy Queen after dinner, Kimberly received another text from Jordan. This one said she wanted to have a serious talk with Cody about how she was really feeling about their marriage. Kimberly told her she would send positive thoughts and prayers for them both. Just before 9 p.m., Jordan sent what would be her most chilling message, but dead serious. "If you don't hear from me at all again tonight, something happened." Later that same night, Jordan showed up on Kimberly's doorstep, telling her that the conversation with Cody hadn't gone well at all. She said Cody had gotten really angry during their talk, and she had ended up leaving their house to go stay at her brother's place for the night. All of this, combined with Jordan's seemingly supernatural ability to know exactly where to find Cody's body, and her strange comments about him wanting to see that place before he died, as well as her failure to be the one to report him missing, it was all just too suspicious for Kimberly to ignore. Kimberly told detectives she had a sickening feeling in her gut, but she knew somehow that Jordan was responsible for Cody's death. She just didn't know how or why it had happened. Detectives had already been having their own suspicions, given how many times Jordan's story had changed during questioning. Kimberly's text message evidence only solidified their growing belief that something was very wrong with Jordan's version of events. After Kimberly came forward, police got even more crucial evidence. The IP address from that mysterious Carmen Tony email came back, and it pointed directly to the email being created and sent from Jordan's stepfather's home computer. Even more damning, despite Jordan's claims that she and Cody had been separated the night he died, with him driving off with mysterious friends, phone records proved this was a complete lie. Both of their phones had been together in Glacier National Park at exactly 9:17 p.m. that night. Using this specific time frame, investigators were able to gather CCTV footage from the entrance to the park, which clearly showed Cody's car entering with both him and Jordan inside. Police were no longer looking for the mysterious Carmen Tony or trying to track down elusive out-of-town friends. They were now looking directly at Jordan Graham as their prime suspect. Jordan was asked to come back into the station one more time and tell them the complete, honest truth about what had really happened that night. Under intense questioning, she eventually broke down and confessed to a version of events that was drastically different from everything she had told them before. She admitted that she had started talking to Cody about her true feelings about their marriage, and the conversation had escalated into a serious argument. Cody had suggested that if this was really how she felt, they should get their marriage annulled. But Jordan was worried about what people would think of her reputation if they got divorced just 8 days after their wedding. How embarrassing would that be for her and her family? For reasons that remain unclear to this day, they both got in the car and drove together to Glacier National Park, where they set off on a hiking trail. At one point in her confession, Jordan even mentioned something about a blindfold, though the details of this remain murky. She said they both walked over a bridge and then climbed over the safety retaining wall, where their argument continued to escalate. According to Jordan's confession, Cody grabbed her arm and her jacket during the fight and she told him she wasn't going anywhere. She claimed she pushed him in self-defense. He went over the edge, and then she panicked and ran home. But investigators weren't buying this version of events either. If it was truly an accident or self-defense, why wouldn't she have immediately called for help instead of running home to create a fake email on her stepfather's computer? Why would Cody, who was terrified of heights, have climbed over a safety wall in the pitch-black darkness above a 300-foot drop? And what was this business about a blindfold? For someone who wasn't afraid of heights, climbing over a safety barrier in complete darkness above such a deadly drop would be unthinkable. For someone like Cody, who was actually afraid of heights, it was absolutely inconceivable. Jordan Lynn Graham was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and making false statements to federal authorities. But prosecutors felt this was much more serious than a spur-of-the-moment crime, and those charges were soon upgraded. A grand jury added a charge of premeditated first-degree murder. As her trial began, Jordan's defense team fought hard for a second-degree murder conviction, claiming the death was an accident that happened during a heated argument. But the prosecution felt strongly that this was far more calculated and deliberate than any accident. They pointed to the fact that Jordan had told Cody she had a surprise for him. He was found with what appeared to be a blindfold nearby, and the phone records and fake email showed this was very much premeditated. Combined with her failure to call for help, her lies to police, and her complete lack of emotion afterward, prosecutors argued that she simply didn't care about what she had done and had planned the whole thing, hoping to blame it on mysterious strangers. During the trial, Jordan's own 16-year-old brother had to testify against her. The poor boy sobbed as he told the court how Jordan had brought him to the cliff to discover Cody's body and how she had lied to him about what really happened. He said when she was asked to tell the truth, she told another lie, and when confronted with that lie, she just kept adding more lies to cover up the previous ones. Jordan had even lied to her best friend Kimberly, claiming before Cody's death that her new husband would grab her and had a terrible temper. This was particularly hard for Cody's friends to hear because they knew it was just another lie. Cody was known by everyone as a gentle, kind-hearted person. But just 4 days after her trial began, on December 12, 2013, Jordan Graham's defense team made a stunning announcement. In a complete about-face, the 22-year-old newlywed changed her plea to guilty for second-degree murder. Standing before the judge, Jordan finally told what she claimed was the truth about what really happened at that cliff. I wasn't thinking of where we were. It was a reckless act. I just pushed. Just as the lawyers were preparing to present their closing arguments, the defense revealed they had been offered a deal from the prosecution. They would drop the charges of first-degree murder and making false statements to federal authorities if Jordan agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder. When Jordan spoke that single word guilty, her former mother-in-law, Sherry, wept openly in the courtroom. Jordan's own parents remained completely silent as they watched their daughter being led away in handcuffs by U.S. Marshals. Jordan Graham's plea deal resulted in a sentence of 30 years in federal prison with absolutely no chance of parole. In exchange for her guilty plea, prosecutors agreed to drop the charge of premeditated first-degree murder as well as the count of making false statements to authorities. After her sentencing, the judge made a statement that still gives me chills. There's only one person in this room that knows what really happened up there, and I don't think she's been entirely truthful. Even after accepting the plea deal and receiving her sentence, Jordan Graham tried to have second thoughts. She filed a motion to withdraw her guilty plea on March 26, 2014, but this motion was denied by the court. For those that Cody left behind, they still struggle every single day with how things could have possibly gotten to such a tragic point. They say that as heartbroken as Cody would have been to end their marriage after just 8 days, He absolutely would have walked away peacefully if it meant Jordan could be happy, because her happiness was the most important thing in the world to him. His loving, animated, and vivacious personality is missed dearly by everyone who knew and loved him. For his mother, Sherry, the pain of losing her only child and still never knowing the real reason why haunts her every single day. Cody's best friend said it perfectly. He did so much for everybody, I just didn't realize how much he did for me until he was gone. Now, I have to ask you this, darlings. Do you think 30 years was enough for what Jordan did? She took a beautiful young man who was head over heels in love with her, lured him to a dangerous cliff with promises of surprises, and pushed him to his death rather than have an honest conversation about divorce. Tell me in the comments what you think about this sentence. And that brings us to the end of today's story. It started as what looked like a perfect fairy tale romance and ended in the most senseless tragedy. Sometimes the people we think we know best are carrying the darkest secrets. Sometimes someone would rather commit murder than face a little embarrassment. Poor Cody trusted Jordan with his life, and she betrayed that trust in the most ultimate way possible. But his memory lives on in all the people who loved him, and his kind, generous spirit will never be forgotten. Thank you for listening today, my precious ones. Remember, love should never hurt, and if someone you care about is expressing serious doubts about your relationship, the answer is honest communication, not violence. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember that some conversations, no matter how difficult, are always better than the alternative.